Hello and welcome to the Firepower Management Center REST API overview for version 6.1. Today we'll cover the basics of using the all-new REST API for Firepower. So what is it? The REST API is a programmable interface for Firepower Management Center based on RESTful principles. It's a simple and easy to use with any REST client or programming language. The API calls that are supported today are GET to retrieve data from an object, PUT to augment data in an object, POST to create an object, and DELETE to remove a specified object. To get started, we're going to first enable the REST API. To begin, let's log into Firepower Management Center, select System, Configuration. From there, on the left-hand side, we see REST API Preferences. We'll select that and press the checkbox to enable. Once checked, press Save to commit the settings. Now that our API is enabled, we can begin using it to make calls to the Firepower Management Center. To make these calls, we start with the API Explorer. The API Explorer is a graphical representation of the REST API. It allows you to better understand how to use the new API and provides a guidance on supported calls for each object. To log in to the API Explorer, navigate to the API Explorer URL as shown. The credentials entered should match those of any admin in Firepower Management Center. Once logged in, you'll see a three-pane UI. The first pane breaks down the API objects via category. The second pane displays all of the objects in the selected category. The third and final pane on the far right is an API console, which allows you to test REST calls directly from the GUI. To start, let's begin with a policy object. By selecting Policies on the first pane, we see all of the policy objects available, as well as details on the types of methods supported for each object. By selecting one of the actions in said object, we get a summary of that call in the center pane, as well as the ability to run that call in the console pane. If we run the GET command for the access policy, we see a JSON representation of all the access policies present on the FMC. In the same way, if we want to write an access policy with the POST command, we can change the method to POST and enter the JSON data for our new policy to be added. The example policy here writes a simple access policy with the default action of block. When we press POST, we can see the post was a success and the JSON output. Once successful, we can log back into the UI and see the creation of the access policy. Now that we see the all-new API policy created, we can quickly and easily use the API Explorer to create more access control policies as well as other supported objects. Using the API Explorer is a great way to learn about the REST API features and test calls, but is not scalable. In order to automate and quickly write to the API, you must leverage scripting languages. The API Explorer allows you to generate quick scripts for specific actions directly from the UI. If we look back at the POST call we just made, we see at the bottom there's an option to export the operation in any of two languages, Python or Perl. If we select one of these languages, it generates a created script in that language for the call. The example we have here is in Python for making a POST of that access policy. Using this feature, we can now begin making calls to the FMC API directly from a script rather than through the API Explorer, making automation and scale much easier. Thank you for joining me today for an overview of the all-new REST API for Firepower Management Center version 6.1.